Have you ever looked at a picture of a magnificent palace, a fleet of luxury cars, or a designer suit that costs more than a house, and then looked at a picture of a child with no shoes, a family living in a tin shack, or a community without clean water? It's a jarring contrast, isn't it? Now what if I told you that the palace belongs to a leader, and the child belongs to the people they are meant to serve? This isn't a hypothetical story. This is the reality in many parts of Africa, a continent of incredible beauty, resilience, and potential, yet also a place where the gap between the powerful and the people can feel like a vast, unbridgeable chasm. Today, we're going to talk about wealth. Not just any wealth, but the staggering, eye-watering fortunes amassed by some of the continent's most powerful political figures. We're going to count down the top 10 richest politicians in Africa. These are men who wield immense power and control vast resources, their personal net worths soaring into the hundreds of millions, and in some cases, billions of dollars. And they've built this wealth while millions of their own citizens grapple with extreme poverty, struggling every single day for the most basic necessities of life. So this isn't just a list of rich people, it's an exploration of a paradox. How does this happen? Where does this wealth come from? And what does it say about the systems of governance in place? We're not just here to gawk at the numbers, we're here to ask the tough questions. We're going to look at the stories behind the fortunes, the controversies, and the stark reality faced by the people they lead. So stick with me as we delve into a world of power, politics, and incredible, almost unbelievable wealth. Kicking off our list at number 10 is a name many will recognize: Goodluck Jonathan, the former president of Nigeria. Now, Nigeria is a giant of Africa, right? It's got the biggest economy, the biggest population, and a sea of oil under its soil. You'd think with that much wealth, the country would be a paradise. But during Jonathan's time in office, from 2010 to 2015, a different story was being written. While the nation's resources were booming, so too was his personal fortune, which is estimated to be around $100 million. It's a number that makes you stop and think. Think about it. You're leading a country where, at the time, more than half the population was living on less than $1 a day. $100 million isn't just a lot of money, it's a transformative amount. It could build schools, hospitals, and roads. It could fund programs that lift entire communities out of poverty. Yet, this wealth became a personal asset. The source of this fortune has been a subject of intense debate and scrutiny. His supporters would point to his long career in public service, but critics point to a different source: the very oil that was supposed to enrich the nation. During his presidency, Nigeria's oil industry was plagued by allegations of widespread corruption. Reports from international watchdogs and even Nigerian officials themselves spoke of billions of dollars in oil revenue going missing, unaccounted for. It was a system so leaky, it was more like a sieve. People started asking questions: where did all that money go? While no direct charges of personal enrichment have stuck to Jonathan himself in a court of law, the cloud of suspicion has lingered. The optics are just not great. You have a leader whose personal wealth skyrockets while the national treasury seems to have a hole in it. It's the kind of story that erodes trust, the fundamental currency of any government. People on the street, struggling to make ends meet, look at these figures, and they can't help but feel a sense of betrayal. They see the potential of their nation being siphoned off, and it's a bitter pill to swallow. So, Goodluck Jonathan starts our list, a powerful example of how political office in a resource-rich nation can coincide with the accumulation of immense personal wealth. His story sets the stage for a recurring theme we'll see throughout this list: the blurry line between public service and private gain, and the profound questions that arise when a leader's bank account grows faster than their country's GDP. It's a story of opportunity, but for whom? Coming in at number 9, we have another former president from a continental powerhouse, Jacob Zuma of South Africa, my home country. And let me tell you, the Zuma years were an experience. His presidency from 2009 to 2018 was like a long-running political drama series, complete with corruption scandals, court cases, and a whole lot of public money going to some very private places. His estimated net worth is around $20 million, a figure that, while smaller than others on this list, is deeply controversial given the context of his time in power. The most infamous example, the one that everyone in South Africa knows, is the Nkandla homestead scandal. This was supposed to be a state-funded security upgrade for his private rural home, but security upgrade turned into a multi-million-dollar renovation that included Media group, aerial shot of Nkandla homestead, Nkandla compound exterior with security features, news footage of Nkandla scandal at stock at distribute _ equally, a swimming pool, which was called a fire pool, for fighting fires, a cattle crawl, a chicken run, and even an amphitheater. While the average South African was dealing with rolling blackouts and rising unemployment, the president's home was getting a 5-star makeover on the taxpayer's dime, but Nkandla was just the tip of the iceberg. The real story of wealth accumulation during Zuma's tenure is tied to the concept of state capture. This was a systematic effort by powerful private interests, most notably the Gupta family, to influence government decisions for their own financial benefit. We're talking about rigging state contracts, appointing friendly ministers, and basically turning departments of the state into private cash machines. It was corruption on an industrial scale. The Zondo Commission, a public inquiry into these allegations, has laid bare the shocking extent of this network. Billions of rand were looted from state-owned enterprises, money that was meant for electricity, transport, and other essential services. And while Zuma has consistently denied any wrongdoing, the testimony and evidence have painted a damning picture of a presidency where the lines between the state, the ruling party, and private financial interests were almost completely erased. So, that $20 million figure isn't just about a successful career. For many South Africans, it's a symbol of a lost decade. It represents a period where the promise of democracy was tarnished by greed and corruption on a monumental scale. It's a story about how a leader, once hailed as a man of the people, became entangled in scandals that weakened the very institutions he was supposed to protect, all while the country's deep-seated problems of inequality and poverty continued to fester. For our number 8 spot, we journey to the small, landlocked kingdom of Eswatini, formerly known as Swaziland. Here we find a different kind of leader. King Mswati III, one of the world's last absolute monarchs. His estimated net worth is reported to be at least $200 million, and unlike elected officials who might at least try to be discreet about their wealth, King Mswati's lifestyle is anything but. It is a spectacle of opulence, played out in front of a nation where poverty is a daily reality for the majority. The king's wealth is managed through a sovereign wealth fund called Tbo Takangwane, which he holds in trust for the Swazi nation. However, in practice, the fund operates more like a private corporate empire for the royal family, with vast holdings in sugar, real estate, beverages, and media. There's very little public oversight, and the distinction between the nation's wealth and the king's personal piggy bank is, to put it mildly, incredibly fuzzy. This fund gives him access to a river of cash, and he is not shy about spending it. His shopping sprees are legendary. We're talking about fleets of luxury cars, not just one or two, but dozens of Rolls-Royces and BMWs for himself and his many wives. We're talking about private jets, including a multi-million-dollar Airbus A340, which was a very controversial purchase. We're talking about lavish parties, designer clothes, and opulent palaces that stand in stark, almost cruel, contrast to the homes of his subjects. This extravagant spending happens in a country with one of the world's highest HIV/AIDS prevalence rates and where a significant portion of the population relies on international food aid to survive. While the royal family is flying to global events in their private jet, many citizens are struggling with basic healthcare, education, and employment. It's a medieval-style disconnect between the ruler and the ruled, happening right now in the 21st century. The pro-democracy protests that have erupted in Eswatini in recent years are a direct response to this reality. People are no longer willing to quietly accept a system where the nation's wealth is treated as the personal property of one man and his family. They are demanding accountability, democracy, and a share in the country's prosperity. King Mswati III's story is a powerful reminder that immense wealth, especially when held by an unaccountable leader, can become a potent symbol of injustice and a catalyst for change. At number 7, we return to South Africa to look at its current president, Cyril Ramaphosa. Now, Ramaphosa's story is different from many others on this list. His wealth, estimated to be over $450 million, was largely acquired before he became president. He was a hugely successful businessman, one of the key beneficiaries of the black economic empowerment policies that were designed to redress the economic imbalances of apartheid. He built a massive empire with stakes in everything from mining to McDonald's. On the surface, this looks like a success story, right? A man who fought against apartheid became a key union leader, and then transitioned into a titan of industry. When he became president in 2018, many hoped his business acumen and vast wealth would make him immune to the kind of petty corruption that plagued the Zuma years. The thinking was, this guy is already rich, why would he need to steal? He came into office promising a new dawn, a cleanup of government, and a focus on economic growth. However, the reality has been more complicated. His immense wealth, while legally obtained, still sits uncomfortably in a country that remains one of the most unequal in the world. The Fela Fela farm scandal brought this into sharp focus. The story involves a large sum of foreign currency, allegedly millions of dollars, stolen from his private game farm. The money was reportedly stuffed into furniture and the theft was never officially reported to the police. It raised a lot of awkward questions. Why was there so much foreign cash on his farm? Was it declared? Why the secrecy? The scandal created a perception problem. For a president who promised transparency, it looked like he had something to hide. It blurred the lines between his private business affairs and his public duties. Critics argue that even if his wealth was earned in the private sector, as president, he oversees policies that could potentially benefit his own business interests or those of his associates. It creates a potential conflict of interest that is hard to ignore. So, while Ramaphosa isn't accused of looting the state in the same way as others, his story highlights a different kind of challenge. How does a billionaire lead a nation of profound poverty and inequality? Can a man who lives in a world of unimaginable privilege truly understand the daily struggles of the common citizen? His presidency is a test case for whether a tycoon can effectively govern a country desperate for a more equitable distribution of the very wealth he represents. For number 6, we go to Cameroon, a country that has been under the rule of one man for an astonishingly long time. Paul Biya has been president since 1982. That's over 4 decades. To put that in perspective, when he came to power, the internet didn't exist for the public, the Soviet Union was still a thing, and I wasn't even born yet. His personal fortune is a closely guarded secret, but estimates place it around $200 million, though many believe it could be significantly higher. Biya's rule is famous for 2 things, its length and his absences. He has been dubbed the absentee landlord of Cameroon by the international press because of the enormous amount of time he spends outside the country, often on extended private visits to Geneva, Switzerland. We're not talking about a weekend getaway. Reports have detailed trips that last for weeks, sometimes months, with the president and his entourage staying at a 5-star hotel, costing the Cameroonian state millions of dollars per trip. While the president is enjoying the Swiss lakeside, what's happening back home? Cameroon is a country rich in oil, timber, and agricultural resources, yet it faces immense challenges. There are ongoing conflicts in its Anglophone regions, infrastructure is crumbling in many areas, and youth unemployment is rampant. The disconnect between the leadership's lifestyle and the people's reality is staggering. It feels less like a presidency and more like a long-distance relationship where one person has definitely checked out. The wealth of the Biya family is not just in bank accounts, it's visible. His wife, Chantal Biya, is famous for her flamboyant style, particularly her signature towering hairstyle and love for high-end European fashion labels like Dior and Chanel. Their lavish spending is often on full display during their trips abroad, creating a jarring image for Cameroonians who see these pictures on social media or in the news. It's a constant reminder of the gulf between their lives and the lives of the first family. Paul Biya's long rule has created a system where patronage and loyalty to the president are paramount. State resources are often used to maintain this system, rewarding allies and silencing dissent. The source of his personal wealth is believed to be deeply intertwined with the country's oil revenues and state-owned enterprises, which operate with little to no transparency. After 40 years, the lines between the state's treasury and the president's personal finances have become almost indistinguishable, creating a kingdom of opacity where accountability is a foreign concept. Cracking the top 5, we head to Kenya and its former president, Uhuru Kenyatta. His family is basically Kenyan royalty. His father, Jomo Kenyatta, was the country's first president, and the Kenyatta family has since built one of the largest and most powerful business empires in all of Africa. Uhuru Kenyatta's personal net worth is estimated to be at least $500 million, placing him firmly in the league of the ultra-wealthy. The source of this immense wealth is a story of legacy and power. The Kenyatta family's holdings are vast and diverse, spanning nearly every sector of the Kenyan economy. We're talking about huge tracts of land. Some reports suggest they are among the largest private landowners in the country, as well as major stakes in banking, media, tourism, and dairy production. Their company, Brookside Dairy, is the dominant milk processor in East Africa. If you're in Kenya, it's hard to go a day without interacting with a business linked to the Kenyatta family. This deep entanglement of political power and business interests has been a source of controversy for decades. Critics argue that the family's initial accumulation of wealth, particularly land, was facilitated by Jomo Kenyatta's position of power in the post-independence era. And throughout Uhuru's presidency, from 2013 to 2022, questions were constantly raised about whether state policies were crafted to favor his family's business interests. It's the ultimate conflict of interest question. For example, when the government makes decisions about agricultural policy, land use, or banking regulations, it's hard for citizens not to wonder if the president is thinking about the nation's welfare or the bottom line of his family's empire. The Pandora Papers leak in 2021 further fueled these concerns, revealing that Kenyatta and his close relatives secretly owned a network of offshore companies and foundations worth over $30 million. While owning offshore accounts isn't illegal, it raised questions about transparency and tax avoidance. All of this plays out against the backdrop of Kenya's own struggles. While Nairobi is a vibrant economic hub, the country still deals with significant poverty, high unemployment, and massive public debt. The image of a presidential family with $500 million in secret offshore accounts is a tough one for many Kenyans to stomach, especially when they are being asked to tighten their belts and pay more taxes. Kenyatta's story is a classic example of dynastic wealth, where political power and immense fortune are passed down through generations, creating a ruling class that is worlds apart from the people it governs. At number 4, we find another story of dynastic rule, this time in the oil-rich nation of Gabon. I'm talking about Ali Bongo Ondimba, who was president from 2009 until he was deposed in a coup in 2023. His father, Omar Bongo, had ruled the country for 42 years before him. Together, the Bongo family controlled Gabon for nearly 6 decades. And in that time, they allegedly treated the country's treasury like a personal family trust fund. Ali Bongo's net worth is estimated to be around $1 billion. Yes, that's billion with a B. Gabon is a small country on the west coast of Central Africa, but it's incredibly rich in natural resources, especially oil. For decades, billions of dollars from oil exports have flowed into the country. But where did it all go? If you look at the state of public services, infrastructure, and the poverty rate, it clearly didn't all go to the people. A huge portion of it, according to numerous investigations and reports, went into the pockets of the ruling family and their close associates. The Bongo family's lavish lifestyle was the stuff of legend, and it was often on display not in Gabon but in France. They amassed an incredible portfolio of luxury real estate in Paris and on the French Riviera, including mansions, apartments, and villas worth hundreds of millions of euros. They were known for their fleets of luxury cars, their multi-million-dollar art collections, and their bank accounts stuffed with cash. It was a classic case of kleptocracy where the state is run for the sole purpose of enriching the rulers. A long-running French investigation known as the Ill-Gotten Gains Probe has meticulously detailed how state funds were allegedly embezzled and laundered to pay for this extravagant lifestyle. The investigation implicated several members of the Bongo family, including Ali Bongo himself. The details are almost comical if they weren't so tragic. Millions spent on watches, suits, and properties, while hospitals in Gabon lacked basic medicine. When Ali Bongo was overthrown by the military in 2023, the soldiers who took over made a point of showing the world what they found in the homes of Bongo's allies and family members: suitcases, bags, and boxes literally overflowing with cash in various currencies. It was a stunning visual confirmation of what many Gabonese people had suspected for years. The Bongo dynasty represents one of the most stark and long-running examples of a ruling family treating a nation's resource wealth as their own personal inheritance, leaving generations of their people behind. We now enter the top 3, and for this, we travel to North Africa, to the Kingdom of Morocco. Here we meet King Mohammed VI. His wealth is on a completely different level, estimated by Forbes to be as high as $5.7 billion. This makes him not just one of the richest politicians in Africa, but one of the wealthiest monarchs in the entire world. And his fortune is deeply, intricately woven into the very fabric of the Moroccan economy. The king's wealth comes primarily from his family's majority stake in a massive holding company called the Almada Group, formerly known as the Société Nationale d'Investissement, or SNI. This isn't just one company, it's a sprawling conglomerate with interests in almost every key sector of the Moroccan economy. We're talking about banking, insurance, telecommunications, mining, retail, energy, and tourism. It's so influential that it has been estimated to control a portfolio equivalent to a significant percentage of the Casablanca Stock Exchange's total value. This creates a unique situation. The king is not just the head of state, the commander-in-chief, and the nation's spiritual leader. He is also, effectively, the country's biggest businessman. His personal fortune rises and falls with the Moroccan economy because he owns a huge chunk of the Moroccan economy. This raises fundamental questions about fair competition. How can other businesses compete on a level playing field when one of the main players is also the referee? While Morocco has made significant economic progress under his reign and has a growing middle class, it also struggles with high youth unemployment, rural poverty, and significant social inequality. The image of the king's immense personal wealth, his world-famous art collections, his luxurious palaces, and his reported annual budget of nearly $1 million a day for his household expenses stands in stark contrast to the struggles of many of his subjects. The king's defenders argue that his company's investments drive economic growth and create jobs benefiting the entire nation. They see him as a modernizing force. However, critics point to a system where economic power and political power are concentrated in the hands of one man, creating a structure that can stifle dissent and true economic liberalization. The story of King Mohammed VI is the ultimate case study in the fusion of royal authority and corporate power, a modern monarch whose kingdom is also his business empire. Our number 2 spot takes us to Equatorial Guinea, a tiny nation that proves size has nothing to do with the scale of greed. The man in charge is Teodoro Obiang Nguema Mbasogo, Africa's longest-serving ruler. He seized power in a coup in 1979 and has been in control ever since. His estimated net worth is around $600 million, but this figure is widely believed to be a dramatic understatement of the wealth he and his family have siphoned from the country's vast oil reserves. Equatorial Guinea is a perfect example of the so-called resource curse. In the 1990s, massive offshore oil deposits were discovered, and the country went from being a forgotten backwater to one of sub-Saharan Africa's biggest oil producers. On paper, this should have made every citizen rich. The country has one of the highest GDP per capita figures in Africa, comparable to some European nations. But that's just on paper. In reality, the vast majority of the population lives in abject poverty, lacking access to clean water, basic sanitation, or decent healthcare. So where did the billions and billions of dollars in oil revenue go? All signs point directly to President Obiang and his family. Numerous international investigations and reports have detailed how the nation's oil wealth is treated as the personal property of the ruling clan. State funds are allegedly used to finance a lifestyle of unimaginable luxury for the president, his family, and his inner circle. We're talking about mansions in Malibu, Paris, and Cape Town, fleets of supercars, private jets, and even Michael Jackson memorabilia like that famous crystal-studded glove. The most notorious example of this is the president's son, Teodoro Nguema Obiang Mange, better known as Teodoran. He is also the country's vice president. His spending habits are so extravagant they've led to legal battles around the world. Authorities in France, Switzerland, and the United States have seized assets from him worth hundreds of millions of dollars, including a Parisian mansion, a Bugatti Veyron, and a yacht, all found to have been bought with money embezzled from the Equatorial state. The Obiang regime is one of the most repressive in the world. There is no free press, no political opposition, and any form of dissent is brutally crushed. The state's oil money is used not to build a nation, but to maintain a family's grip on power and fund their personal fantasies. It is perhaps the most extreme and tragic example in Africa of how a country's blessing of natural resources can be turned into a curse for its people by a ruthless and corrupt ruling family. Before we get to our number 1 spot, I need to make a quick but important clarification. You might have seen lists like this that include names like Aliko Dangote of Nigeria. Now Dangote is the richest man in Africa, with a fortune in the tens of billions of dollars. He's a titan of industry, a cement and commodities magnate. But is he a politician? No. He doesn't hold elected office. However, it's crucial to understand that in many African nations, the line between business and politics is not just blurry, it's virtually non-existent. Men like Dangote are power brokers. Their immense wealth gives them incredible influence over politics. They can fund campaigns, lobby for favorable policies, and sometimes their decisions have a greater impact on the lives of everyday people than those of any single politician. Their relationship with the state is symbiotic. The state needs their investment and job creation, and they need the state's licenses, contracts, and friendly regulations. It's a dance of power and money that shapes the destiny of nations. So while our list focuses strictly on those who hold or have held political office, the presidents, kings, and ministers, it's impossible to tell the full story without acknowledging these massive private sector players who operate in the background, influencing the political landscape. The political wealth we are discussing doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's often generated through relationships with these powerful business figures, through state contracts awarded to friendly companies, or through resource extraction licenses granted to powerful conglomerates. This ecosystem of wealth and power is complex. Sometimes the politician is the one with the old money and the business person is the new player. Other times, as we've seen with figures like Cyril Ramaphosa, the businessman becomes the politician, bringing his corporate network with him into the halls of power. Understanding this dynamic is key to understanding how wealth and power truly function on the continent. So, as we prepare to reveal our number one, remember that for every wealthy politician on this list, there is often a network of business interests, power brokers, and international corporations connected to their fortune. The story is always bigger than just one person. It's about the systems that allow such a massive concentration of wealth to happen, often at the expense of the public good. Now, with that context in mind, let's move on to the number one richest politician in Africa. So there you have it, a journey through a world of unimaginable wealth, held in the hands of a few powerful men, while millions of their people navigate a world of scarcity. From the oil fields of Nigeria and Equatorial Guinea, to the royal palaces of Morocco and Eswatini, the story with a few variations is hauntingly similar. It's a story of resources that belong to a nation being treated like a private inheritance, a story of public office being used as a pathway to private fortune. This isn't just about numbers on a ledger, it's about the human cost of this grand-scale enrichment. For every billion-dollar fortune, there are countless stories of struggle that don't make the headlines. The child who can't go to school because there are no teachers. The mother who gives birth in a clinic with no electricity. The young graduate with a brilliant mind but no job opportunities. These are the invisible victims of a system where the priorities are so profoundly skewed. The wealth we've discussed could transform societies, fund revolutions in healthcare and education, and build infrastructure that lifts everyone. Instead, it funds lifestyles of a tiny elite. This brings us to the fundamental question that hangs over this entire discussion: what is the purpose of leadership? Is it to serve the people, to uplift the nation, and to build a better future for the next generation? Or has it, in these cases, become a mechanism for self-enrichment, a game where the prize is personal power and wealth beyond measure? As we watch these stories unfold, we must continue to ask these questions, to demand transparency, and to hold power accountable. The future of a continent with all its incredible potential depends on the answer: